I've been spending the last week or so organizing a proposal to secure funding for my next book. However, upon reading the fine print of their 25-page guide, I realized that I did all of this work for nothing because I'm currently ineligible. So I have two choices. I can forget about it and go back to the drawing board. Or I can throw out a Hail Mary and see if there's anyone virtuous and courageous enough, or scandalous enough, who can make things happen. If you take one for the team, I'll turn a blind eye to however you make it happen, no questions asked. If you know someone with a general interest publication with a large national or international audience that can work with me to publish 3 articles from this Substack over the next few weeks, you can help me become eligible for a grant that'll facilitate me taking my work to the next level. The deadline to submit this proposal is November 29, 2023, so this needs to get done now. Please forward this to anyone you think would be interested. Call in a favor if you have to. This book is going to be epic. You will be acknowledged if you help me become eligible. The following is a proposal for my next book, which will be published with or without your support. Scale. Grant proposal. Significance. The history of Italy has been lost, specifically that of the Romans and their Etruscan predecessors, and as a result, the history of the rest of the world has been lost. But I suspect it can be recovered through an understanding of details that are overlooked and not taught in modern academia. My goal is to make learning language, culture, and history exciting. People can be a lot of things when it comes to learning, but one thing they cannot be is bored. Boredom causes people to be unable to process information. We are in the too long, didn't read generation. If you don't care about a topic, then why should anyone else care about it? As you will see, not only do I care about history, I am like a gladiator in the arena when I uncover it, unleashing the truth to defend itself against all scrutiny. Are you not entertained? I have yet to see a modern archaeologist or historian demonstrate superior knowledge of philology, astronomy, mythology, or religious symbolism. As a result, their interpretations of important discoveries have missed the mark, and the consequences of their inaccurate claims deprived you of your history. The purpose of this work is to correct the chronological and cultural record that has been distorted, namely that of Italy and the civilization that Italians brought everywhere they went. As you will see, the epicenter for the ancient maritime empire has always been exactly where you'd expect it to be, Italy, located in Middle-earth, Mediterranean. Machiavelli explained what caused the downfall of Italy in The Prince. When the Cardinal of Rouen told me that Italians understood little about warfare, I replied to him that the French understood little about stagecraft, for if they had some understanding, they would not have permitted the Church to gain so much power. Experience has shown that the power of both the Church and of Spain in Italy has been caused by France, and that her downfall has been brought about by the Church and by Spain. Del Mar wrote, War. Cause. Page 284. Until our chronology is rectified, Roman history will have to be written over and over again, without its being able to impart to mankind any convincing lessons in either religion or politic. The laws relating to religious matters were kept secret by the pontiffs that they might hold the minds of the multitude in bondage, said Livy, 6. 1. Roman history has been falsified and its monuments destroyed, said Plutarch, on the future of the Romans. From these deliberate verdicts of antiquity there can be no appeal, except to archaeology and a scientific arrangement of dates. Much of modern Western civilization is a result of progress made by the indigenous cultures of the region we call Italy. However, nothing is more obfuscated than the history of Italy prior to the Middle Ages. There are many claims that Italians are descended from Greek culture and cultures from Asia Minor, but the languages of ancient Italy are not Indo-European, which debunks those ideas. In fact, their alphabets are almost one-for-one Phoenician, and the oldest abecedarium formerly thought to be Greek turned out to be Etruscan, with no evidence of Greek descent, see the Marsiliana tablet. This statement needs no appeal to authority or citation once you learn philology. You become the authority, just like with math, once you learn how to do it. You do not have to ask anyone's permission to demonstrate that 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. However, to satisfy those who engage in the logical fallacy of appealing authority because they can't do the work, here is a quote from B. L. Ullman, Etruss. Org. Rom. This older alphabet is identical with that which scholars formerly thought was Greek. The early Abecedarian, Marsiliana, Formello, Caira, are Etruscan rather than Greek. The misnomer that the Etruscans descended from Greeks is nonsense. You may be asking how they have the same alphabets yet no affinity? Simple. The Etruscans are descendants of Phoenicians, or they are the Phoenicians, who civilized the Greeks and admittedly gave the Greeks their 17-letter alphabet circa 500 BC. William Betham acknowledged the significance of Italy to the ancient maritime empire, ETR. Celt, page 142. Italy was the first great colony of the Phoenicians, which improved on the state of civilization derived from their Tyrian ancestors, even more than Carthage. Betham presumed the Phoenicians were from Tyre, but this cannot be true either, as my work, supported by the work of others, demonstrates that the Etruscans' language is descended from Phoenician, if not a variant of it. There is nothing in the East that resembles their language, save for the cultures they traveled to for commerce, which adopted their alphabetical system that is a child of priestcraft being made common to make trade easier. The Phoenicians brought this eastward. It did not come from the east, despite the legend of Cadmus. Reverend Faber wrote, Org. Pag. Idle. Book 4. CHV, edition 4-2. Page 360. The religion of the Celts, as professed in Gaul and Britain, is palpably the same as that of the Hindus and Egyptians, the same also as that of the Canaanites, the Phrygians, the Greeks, and the Romans. How could this cultural diffusion occur? There's only one group of people capable of bringing this system to the locations it is found. Reverend Faber answered the question, IB, Book 3. Ch3, Conon says that the Phoenicians once possessed the empire of Asia, that they made Egyptian Thebes their capital. Does this sound outrageous to you? Look up Liber Lintius Agrabaiensis. Behold, an Egyptian mummy from Luxor, Egyptian Thebes, wrapped in a linen with Etruscan script on it. Why? Well, if you fund me, I will create one of the best works of all time that demonstrates the Phoenicians were Etruscans, who are the ancient indigenous people of Italy. But there's more, and it gets even stranger, because the empires in the Americas had similar religious systems to those found in the Old World, along with affinities between language, religious rites, dress, and more. According to Dionysius Halicarnassus, indeed, those probably come nearest to the truth who maintain that the Etruscan nation migrated from nowhere else, but was native to the country. Kukulkan is another name for Quetzalcoatl. His mitre appears to come from Egyptian symbolism, specifically that used on Wadjet, known as the Atef, feathered white crown of Osiris. The alleged Viking wardrobe found at Newfoundland is similar to that of the Carthusian monks. According to Torquemada, the missionaries supposed that Quetzalcoatl, that's how they transliterated it back then, was an Irishman, because he was called Kukulkan, how they spelled it back then, in Yucatan, and wore a hood and a vest covered with red crosses, and they thought he must have been a Carthusian monk, so named from the paper covering which they wore on their heads, from the Italian word cartoccio. I thought this was a whitewashing of history, but the Mexican paintings indeed have him wearing a mitre. It looks like the Irish branch of the Phoenicians beat the other cultures in that empire there. Columbus, who ought to be named Colonus, might be to cover up everything related to St. Columba. Remember, the Carthaginian language was merely Sicilian Phoenician. For those who think this symbolism and language between Italy, Ireland, and Mexico is anecdotal, Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan signify a plumed serpent. The Serpent King is ancient in Egypt. If dated properly, a pharaoh of the first dynasty whose name is indicated by a snake glyph, was also called the Serpent King early in the 3rd millennium BC. Egyptologists pronounced his name Jet, but then Waji. Look up images of Wadjet. This is undeniable diffusion between Egypt and Mexico. There is only one culture known for the maritime capabilities at this time, and that would be the Phoenicians, whose first great colony was Italy. Godfrey Higgins cited Dr. Young, who wrote that nothing could be inferred with respect to the relation to two languages from the coincidence of the sense of any single word in both of them, that is, supposing the same simple and limited combination of sounds to occur in both, but to be applied accidentally to the same number of objects, without any common links of connection, and that the odds would only be 3-1 against the agreement of two words, but if three words appeared to be identical, it would be more than 10-1 that they must be derived, in both cases, from some parent language, or introduced in some other manner from a common source. 6 words would give near 1,700 chances to 1, and 8 would give near 100,000, so that, in these last cases, the evidence would be little short of absolute certainty. Regarding these odds, Higgins wrote, Anak. Volume 2. Page 234, now admitting that there are 339 words in Greek and Sanskrit identical, what are the odds? But admitting this fact, that there are 339 Greek and 263 Persian words, the same as in the Sanskrit, what is the doctrine of chances? And again, admitting that there are in the Sanskrit and the German 163 words identical, how stands the doctrine of chances? Is it probable that the Sanskrit is derived from the 3, or the 3 from it, or all the 4 from a common source? The affinity of the Celtic, Roman, and Sanskrit languages have been demonstrated, yet the Brahmins were not allowed to travel past the borders of modern-day Pakistan into the region of modern-day Iran. Not only that, but the Indians are not known for being a maritime nation. Neither are the Chinese. The Chinese, though they had lodestones and seafaring boats, had not yet discovered the art of navigation all the way into the 19th century, and provides evidence that the cultural diffusion found throughout the world cannot be a result of the celestial empire of China. Gutzlaff observed in his Boy. China. Page 87, the whole coast of China is very well known to the Chinese themselves. As their navigation is only coasting, they discover, at a great distance, promontories and islands, and are seldom wrong in their conjectures. They have a directory, which, being the result of centuries of experience, is pretty correct in pointing out the shoals, the entrances of harbors, rocks, and sea. As they keep no dead reckoning, nor take observations, they judge of the distance they have made by the promontories they have passed. They reckon by divisions, 10 of which are about equal to a degree. Their compass differs materially from that of Europeans. Cyrus Gordon wrote, before Columbus, page 94, sailing on the open seas required the development of celestial navigation. Sea people needed some literate personnel for every operational unit, which happens to be the individual ship. Since the vessels were by modern standards quite small, a system of writing that could be learned quickly was required. The alphabet, usually ranging between 20 and 30 letters, made sense, and it is no accident that a sea people, the Phoenicians, employed the alphabet and transmitted it to Europe. Again, page 100, the alphabet is the most useful single invention made by man throughout all his history. With the ancient cumbersome systems of writing like the Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Chinese, popular literacy is impossible. The alphabet with such a limited repertoire of signs brought literacy within the grasp of whole nations and made universal education possible. If this cultural diffusion requires a European maritime empire to spread to the locations we see it, there is only one, the Etrusco-Phoenicians, who are ancient Italians. Betham wrote, Atr. Celt. Page 10, it has been said that this language, Phoenician, was Hebrew, or had a strong affinity to it, but the best Hebraists have tested it without success, for the results have not enlightened the world. The few existing translations through the Hebrew are scarcely vouched by their authors. If the Hebrew and Phoenician were sister tongues, the affinity would be palpable and universal, not confined to a few words or sentences. The Hebrew has been preserved without change with the greatest care and anxiety, and therefore ought to be found identical, if at all akin to the Phoenician. The Celto-Etruscan has not only an affinity, but its similarity is almost universally applicable to every Phoenician and Etruscan inscription to which it has been applied, and is, therefore, the true key, every division of which fits the words, and opens the long-hidden treasure to our view. The Etruscan language and over half of the languages from Italy not Indo-European like Greek is. Not only that, but the alphabets of the Irish, Etruscans, Phoenicians, etc. have the same ancient letters that were allegedly given to the Greeks circa 500 BC. Swinton had a 13-letter Etruscan alphabet, while Gorius and Astle had a 12-letter Etruscan alphabet, proving it to be possibly the oldest alphabet. Jocelyn Penny Small wrote about Etruscan banquets, more. ETR, page 89, if the scholar removes his Greek sunglasses, he has a chance to view the Etruscans with merely modern eyes. Simply put, the Etruscans are not Greeks. Michael Grant wrote, The Etruscans, page 18, the Etruscans seem so very unclassical that certain ancients liked to imagine that they came from Asia Minor. I do not believe in that theory, but prefer to regard them as a non-classical, native strain from Italy itself. Either the ancient maritime empire originated in Britain or it originated in Italy and spread to Britain when the Phoenicians peopled those islands. Not only that, I propose that the difficulty in figuring out Italy's history is the unwillingness to conceive that the Phoenicians are ancient Italians, indigenous to Italy, and not to Asia Minor as the narrative of religion would have you believe. Dionysius of Halicarnassus lists Saturnia as one of the towns first occupied by the Pelasgi and then by the Etruscan civilization. According to Betham, Celt. ETR, the Pelasgoi were but Phoenician mariners who were to be found, not only in Greece, but everywhere a ship could approach the coasts of the Mediterranean. But how did the symbolism for Egypt get to the Americas? According to Herodotus, for 42, the Phoenicians were employed by at least one Egyptian king, Nikos, to sail around Africa, an account that even he didn't believe at the time, so it is likely that their employment took them all over the world during various stages of their empire, and much of it was kept secret, just like the British Isles, which were peopled by Phoenicians so long ago that no one can accurately date it. But the languages and alphabets used by the Britons prove it along with the artifacts and religious customs. The plumed serpent identity between sun gods like Kukulkan, Mexico, and Waji and Wajet, Egypt, are dated c. 3100 BC. Ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at the greatest cultural diffusion of all time or the greatest archaeological forgery. There is no in-between. History will have to be rewritten after this book. And just think, you have a choice to be a part of it and share the glory. Work plan. Most of the citations I'll use will be from works prior to the 20th century. I may reach out to a couple publishers, but the work of this book doesn't require using anyone's words verbatim. I can use archaeological finds to demonstrate the ideas I'll put forth. The bulk of my research has already been published in articles. Now will be the time to organize, refine, and expand upon it in a concise manner that will defend itself against the most rigid of scrutiny and criticism. I start today. Not tomorrow. I don't take days off. I show up every day, and it's how I was able to publish 4 books from 2022 to 2023. When you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. I'm always learning and researching. Mythology. The Etruscan and Phoenician mythology is shared. The Roman mythology, while thought to descend from Greek, has clear descent from Etruscan mythology. For example, Manetho, Etrusco-Phoenician, springs from the head of Tinia, Etrusco-Phoenician. In this case it is at least in part an allegory for Whitsun. The Greek version of this is Athena, which signifies from Tinia, and Betham noted this was the case in the Irish tongue as well, Athena, which is from Tinia, the Phoenician Jupiter. The Roman version is clearly the Etrusco-Phoenician version, Minerva. Notice the philological interchange of E/I and F/V. Castor and Pollux are exclusively of Etruscan origin. The affinity between the Greek Apollo and Hades, the Roman Mars and Pluto, the Etruscan Aplu, Tuchulcha, Kuklu, and Ide, and the Mexian Kukulkan will be explored, along with Egyptian deities too numerous to list. Philology, the structure of language. For example, the Zayin, or letter Z, in ancient Italian/Phoenician alphabets looked like the letter I, again, no correspondence to any language from the East. The Greeks turned it into Zeta, seen in words like Zeus, but you will see pottery with alleged Greek mythology, names like Zeus, still written in older forms like Ievs, use. This is easy to dismiss as descent from Greek till now, for I will remind you that the older alphabet that scholars formerly thought was Greek turned out to be Etruscan, which has no affinity to Indo-European languages like Greek. Not only that, but as Higgins observed, if what Gorius and Swinton wrote can be depended on, then the ancient Etruscan alphabet had only 13 letters, which would indicate the alphabet originated there, before any of the other nations' versions of 16 or 17. Therefore, the ancient Italians must be the oldest nation or have come from the oldest nation. There is no trace of the Greek names in Etruscan or Latin letters, which supports that they didn't descend from Greek. The Lemnos stele, a gravestone on the Greek island that scholars guess belongs to the 6th century BC, is written in a language or letters that is close to those of the Etruscans. Thucydides wrote that it was Tyrrhenians, Etruscans, that lived on Lemnos and Athens. At least half of the languages in Italy are not of Indo-European origin, including Sardinian, Ligurian, most of Sicyon, Rhaetian, but unfortunately not enough remains to learn about them, so we run into the same challenges as we do with Etruscan. Cultural diffusion and archaeology. This portion of the book will investigate architecture, burial rites, tombs, artifacts, dwellings, the Etruscans' love for Orientalism, and other interesting findings that indicate cultural diffusion or lack thereof at dig sites. Etruscan roofing has so much in common with the elaborate wooden superstructures of Villanovan huts that nothing less than a direct continuity of indigenous tradition can be involved. Ristet, Moore. ETR. Page 161. Certain Etruscan sites are not mentioned in ancient historical or epigraphical texts, inscriptions on statues or edifices. The same can be said of ancient British sites. The Etruscan artifacts found by archaeologists indicate influence from all over the world, and Etruscan pottery and metals have also been found in remote places, indicating how expansive their empire was. They were a maritime power, also referred to by some as Etruscan thalassocrats, lords of the sea, and so this would explain why we see Italian masonry styles in the Americas, North Africa, and Asia, in addition to being all over Europe, as well as Gorgon symbolism in Etruria, Greece, Mexico, and Asia. The most important city-states during Etruria's greatness were Tarquinii, Tomb of Typhon, Hill of La Civita. The paintings of Tarquinii surpass all others in Etruria. Caera, the objects from the Regalini Galassi tomb prove Etruscan gold jewelry was unmatched in skill, therefore not descended from another culture. Invention of the thin-walled Bucero pottery at this location. The size and complexity of Banditace is unprecedented. Volsci, not one Roman or Greek writer accounts for this city. Of immense wealth, Vecelloniya, the exact opposite of Volsci, its location was only known through literature until alleged archaeological finds. Gran Caro, an alleged Etruscan city found submerged in Lake Bolsena. Bolleteri, little is known about the people, but they were heavily involved in a nautical, maritime capacity of Rome, which indicates Phoenician descent. Clusium. This location is the origin of unique symbols and art, as well as tomb styles, found elsewhere in later cultures, and its alphabet gave way to the runes. Cumae, though claimed to be the first ancient Greek colony on mainland Italy, it has ancient non-Greek Etruscan tombs, and Vi, the salt miners and merchants for the empire made the preserving of food possible. No less than 3 locations had inscriptions claiming to be Vi. The exploration of these will yield a few chapters based on research I've published privately. I will dismantle the narrative of Greek influence in Sardinia, Sicily, Rome, Etruria, and Italy, exposing the legendary non-historical nature of the story of Demaratus. The bizarre affinity that Mexican art has to Etruscan art, specifically that found in the Chan Chan zone and among the Moche culture, will be examined, along with archaeological comparisons between Selva di Milano, Etruria, and Inquiltambo, Peru. North Africa, specifically the Numidians, also known as Berbers, will be accounted for as well due to this empire's footprints in North Africa. A brief exploration of Sardegna, Italy, Arizona, America, and Chanquillo, Peru, and the similarity of these sites is prepared. I will address the claims of runestones and Roman artifacts found in America, as well as the possibility of Diodorus describing the Americas, and Herodotus's account of Phoenicians sailing around Africa in the 7th or 6th century BC. I will also propose the possibility of ocean baths, which may be ancient seafood farms, in Italy, Malta, Spain, and Ireland being examples of cultural diffusion. If there was no ancient cultural diffusion, how came the Egyptians, Mexicans, Greeks, and Romans shared the same calendars as well as their mistakes? The affinity between the Irish and the Egyptians will also be explored. Religious symbolism and possible origins in navigators' tools. The root of bishop and fish are philologically the same, even in Latin, piscis, as well as in Vishnu, who turns into a fish. Bishops were called the little fishes, or pisciculi. The nautical cross staff, Jacob's staff, corresponds to the patriarchal cross. The papal cross corresponds to the Phoenician letter, Samek. The mariner's astrolabe looks like the Celtic cross. The crux ansata, or ankh, looks like an anchor. The yoni and lingam look like a ship's hull and mast. Dagon is a fish, Dag, deity, while On is the sun. Heliopolis used to be named On. Ichthys is an acrostic encoding of Jesus Christ and a symbol of Christians. There are claims that Abu-Sur meant father of the fishes, which would be Dagon, or Dagpa, another name for Buddha, its significance being the most remote location of pyramids in Egypt. I suspect this is a translation taken literally without realizing the bishops were called the little fishes, pisciculi. Not only that, Abu-Sur has a relief that is claimed to depict the king and his court observing the departure of 12 seagoing vessels. Could this correspond to the 12 tribes of Etruscans? I will also include a chapter that addresses Uralic languages and the claim that Etruscans are an Ergo-Finnish race originating in Russia, beginning with Professor Jules Martha's claims in 1915 regarding the Zagreb mummies Liber Lintius. We will explore the Elder and Younger Futhark alphabets, and the earliest examples we have of them in the archaeological record to prove that they descend from Etruscan and not the other way around. I created a list of locations of interest that I should like to visit, mainly focused on places like Sardinia, Sicily, and Italy, and perhaps the Balearic Islands, that you can reference and witness how much work I put into this. It is a one-of-a-kind extensive resource that is invaluable to researchers. It will help you see the scope of this empire, the Holy Sailors' locations. One of the things the internet is deficient in is 4K footage of these locations, shot in meaningful ways that will help researchers examine the locations, so depending on circumstances, I may travel and get involved with aerial archaeology through drone footage in addition to the new iPhone 14 Pro Max and M1 MacBook I acquired to shoot 4K footage at the locations. Fortunately, I can work on location wherever I go, because most of my research involves me reading old books and then seeing what I can follow up on in the real world to confirm the information and refine it. Competency, skill, and access. I am the best in the world at showing my readers the ancient universal system of priestcraft that governs this world and the cultural diffusion left in its wake. For anyone who disputes this, I challenge to have your best scholars refute the knowledge and spirit world, a Godsacre for winds of the soul in a professional capacity. My only agenda is truth. I am not part of any group or organization that would prevent me from speaking my mind on any issue. Morality and doing the right thing are all that concern and motivate me. Other than that, I believe people are entitled to their opinions and beliefs, and as long as we can remain respectful to each other, our civilization will thrive. All of us have a right to know the history of our cultures. From time immemorial, the priests and the ruling classes have hidden that from the majority of civilization. I've published 6 books related to these subjects since 2017. I am prolific. I transliterate all of the citations in ancient languages I use to support my claims, something that I've never seen another antiquarian do, so that you can see what they look like in English letters. This helps the English-speaking reader learn and research the citation more efficiently. As a result, you and the people that read my work eventually end up being able to transliterate Greek, Hebrew, Etruscan, and Phoenician on your own by merely recognizing the transliterations. You'll also recognize roots and radicals, which will enable you to interpret the meanings of words in other languages without studying them. Once you learn the alphabets, something remarkable will happen. You'll see that they are almost the same system wherever in the world you find the use of letters, which is an exclusive invention of the priests. My work has impacted people around the world. You can see the reviews for yourself. You will be proud of the riveting research I bring forth with this grant. Final product and dissemination. I will bring glory to you by publishing the most enlightening and thought-provoking book on the Etruscans and the ancient history of Italy that's ever been written. I will use Amazon and other aggregators like PublishDrive and Smashwords to ensure it gets in as many reputable online bookstores all over the world as possible, certainly every continent besides Antarctica. My goal is to ignite a new era of renaissance and progress regarding the research of antiquities, and help current historians and archaeologists overcome hurdles based on erroneous chronology, as well as to publish a work that makes you look good so you can take pride in knowing you facilitated it, which will hopefully further your career in all future endeavors as people recognize you have excellent taste, standards, and credibility.